Hey, welcome back to the How to Podcast series. It's Dave with you yet again. Hope you're doing well. I want to talk to you today a little bit about something that I think you need to contemplate for your podcast. How your podcast is unique from all of the other podcasts out there. Maybe it's just an idea. Maybe you haven't hit record yet. Maybe you're planning stages of your podcast. But how are you going to make your podcast memorable in a very crowded world? And I have one question for you. What is your red door? What is your red door? On the How to Podcast series. Curious? Well, let's go through that door right now. Here we go. Have you guys ever gone out to buy real estate? Or find your next apartment, or something along those lines? When my wife and I were looking for our current home, we went around with our real estate agent. My wife and I had picked out a bunch of homes that we wanted to see. Unlike what we see on television, where the real estate agent seems to bring the couple to the homes, we had the homes picked out and just gave them a list. And my real estate agent had all these places set up, and we would go from house to house to house. We would see multiple houses in one day. It was a whirlwind of different setups, backyards, front yards, how many bedrooms, bathrooms, upstairs, downstairs, gardens, pool, no pool. And I just remember at the end of the day sitting down with my wife and saying, okay, which was the house that we liked the best? And we found a trick that helped us. And we use this not just in buying real estate, but also in general life. And what we kind of affectionately call the red door. What is the red door? What are you talking about, Dave? The red door is a unique feature, a unique thing that stands out in our mind about, in this case, the houses we see. So there was literally a house that we saw that we liked. And to remember that certain house in our conversation, that house just happened to have a red door. So the fact that it had a red door stood out to us. And as soon as we mentioned the house with the red door compared to the 10 other houses we saw that day, we could instantly go remember the living room, the dining room, the kitchen, the backyard, because everything was tied to that red door. It was the one thing that we remembered about the house that opened and unlocked our memory of all of the other things, the features, and all the things we loved and maybe didn't like so much about the red door house. So the red door, for me, I have actually seen it come up in interviews. I did a lot of interviews for job placement companies working in, hiring people for industries and for office jobs. And I was the guy that sat across the table from you in an interview, listening to you talk about your resume and your work history. And one of the questions I'd love to ask to any potential person that we would be hiring for a job within our company was kind of like, what is your red door? And the confused look from a potential applicant in the process looking at me like, what did you say? What is your red door? Because as you can see, and I would say to them, I have a stack of resumes here. I have 20 more people to talk to after you about this position. And I need something to remind myself about our conversation. What is unique about you as it relates to this position that will make you stand out in my memory so that I don't forget about our conversation? What is it about you that's unique? And that gave my applicant the opportunity to talk about their red door. What was different about them? What was unique? And when they left, I would make notes on their resume what their red door was. Could be their attitude, could be their knowledge, could be their training, could be their passion. Something that they said that stood out that was unique and different. And I think as podcasters, we need to have a unique thing about our podcast that sets us apart from all of the other podcasts. This podcast is the How to Podcast series. Do you know how many other how-to podcasts there are out there that teach podcasting? There are a ton of these. They come in bulk, like Costco, where you can buy a pallet of food instead of one box. They're just like truckloads of these kind of podcasts in the world. Some are great, some no. But there's got to be something about this podcast that stands up and stands out in a crowded market. And that would be my red door. What's my red door? What's the red door for the How to Podcast series, Dave? It is that I think we need less judgment and more coaching. We need less of people making fun of people for not doing it, quote, their way, not using their mic or their service or their whatever, fill in the blank. And seeing too many podcasters be ridiculed for not doing it correctly. That's judgment, and I don't like that. I like coaching. I want to work with you. I want you to learn. I want you to grow, and I want to see you succeed. So that's my red door. So making your podcast stand out in a crowded market requires a combination of creativity, authenticity, and strategic planning. And I have 4 steps for you that I've been working on to help you create a unique podcast that sets itself apart from all of the other podcasts out there that are similar to your topic. Are you ready? Number 1, identify your niche. That's right. It's pronounced niche, everyone. Niche and target audience. And I've got some action steps for you around this. You ready? All this will be in the show notes. And if you're not a show notes person, go there today because all this information will be there for you to copy and use wherever you want. Okay? Step 1, identify your niche and your target audience. Action steps, I have 3. Conduct market research to identify your target audience and their interests. What do you know about your audience? You need this information. 2 is choose a specific niche or topic that aligns with your passion and expertise. I hear many people creating podcasts who create podcasts for the audience, but they, as a host, have no interest in the topic. So they create a podcast about managing your money, and the host really doesn't care about that topic. So you can tell after a few episodes, man, I'm bored. So choose a specific niche or topic that aligns with your passion. What are you passionate about? Create a podcast that you would listen to, and you won't get bored with your topic. And last, look for gaps in the existing podcast market and identify areas where you can offer something different. Your red door. Look for gaps. Like I said, I listen to podcasts, and I've heard podcast gurus who talk down to women and think that women don't have technology skills. They don't have the ability to do podcasting because they're not wired that way. And I think, my goodness, how did you get away with saying that? Where did that come from? I have a problem with that. I don't think that that's appropriate. So anyways, I don't listen to that podcast anymore. There are certain gaps in podcasting, in how to podcast and podcast learning and teachings that I think I can get in there and offer an alternative that supports you without feeling judged. I'm here to coach. The second part of this is to define your unique selling proposition. Your USP, your unique selling proposition. And I got 3 action steps here for you as well. To define your unique selling proposition, this action step will help clearly articulate what makes your podcast special and different from others. It's got to be crystal clear and very articulate. What makes your podcast special and different from others? Also, highlight the key benefits and the value that your podcast provides to its listeners. What are the key benefits? They're very important to what you're going to be doing as a podcaster. And lastly, emphasize your strengths such as your personality, your storytelling ability, and or your expert guests. If you're not the expert in your topic, bring on experts and learn as you grow. Let your audience see you develop right in front of them as you bring on experts and learn from them. So define your unique selling proposition. The third part is to create great high quality content. And I've got 4 action steps here for you. Invest in good quality recording equipment, editing software to ensure a professional sound so you don't sound like you're talking on your phone. You want to sound as good as you can so your listener has a good listening experience. Keep them in mind. Craft compelling and well-researched episodes that offer insights and entertainment. Incorporate engaging storytelling techniques to captivate your audience, like a red door, and consistently deliver fresh and relevant content on a regular schedule. Right now for the How to Podcast series, we're doing 3 episodes a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and they come out at 6 a.m. Eastern. That's a lot of episodes. But there's a lot to say on podcasting, and I want to help you get your show up running as fast as possible. I'd like to do more, but I do have 6 other shows. Step 4 in this whole process is to leverage marketing and promotion. And for this, I've got 4 action steps as well. Number 1 is to develop a strong branding strategy, including a visually appealing logo and cover art. Your brand. And I heard another podcaster talk about this, that you people will see your brand before they hear your show. So what do you want them to see? What speaks to the audience? And if you're not sure what your brand is, then figure out what your brand isn't. And I've talked about this before, that a man was carving a bear out of a tree trunk on the side of the road using a chainsaw. And a spectator was watching him, admiring his amazing ability to transform this fallen tree into a bear. This beautiful sculpture of a bear. And during a break, the spectator came up to the carver and said, how do you know how to turn a tree into a gorgeous sculpture of a bear? How do you do that? And the sculptor simply said, it's very simple. You just take everything off that's not a bear. And I'm like, well, there it is right there. If you're not sure what your branding strategy is, then define what your brand strategy isn't. Go look at other podcast show art and podcast websites and listen to other shows and go, I like this. I like a little bit of that. I'm going to ignore this. I'm not going to talk down to women. That's not a good thing to do. I'm going to focus on my audience and I want to help coach people. And I don't want to judge anyone for how they do their podcast. That's what I'm going to do. Also, utilize social media platforms to engage with your audience regularly. Again, I've talked about on Instagram. I love giving voice messages on Instagram. Works really, really well to build up that know, like, and trust, where my audience who follows me on social media could anticipate a message showing up in their DMs. Not a typed message, but a voice message. I think it's a little more personal and a little more unique. So what can you do to utilize your social media platforms? Also collaborate with other podcasters or influencers in your niche to cross-promote each other's shows. What do we do here on the How to Podcast series? You get the Daily Dave, you get episodes like this, more of a teaching episode, and then I have co-hosted episodes where amazing podcasters from around the world come on to share their podcast journey to encourage you with their story. So you can hear from them and learn from them, and that will accelerate your journey and help you get further faster by learning through someone else's lived experience. And that's why I do that here. Also, encourage listener participation through contests, surveys, question and answer sessions, and that's what I want from you. On the howtopodcast.ca website is a SpeakPipe, that little microphone. You click it, you get 90 seconds to respond and leave me a message. You can just say hi. I like those. Those are great. Or you can answer our Podcaster's Corner question for the month. And that is simply around the idea of if you had one call to action at the end of your podcast to leave your audience with, one action item that you're asking them to do, and you're only allowed to have one, what would it be, and why did you pick that? So my call to action might be go to the howtopodcast.ca website and leave me a SpeakPipe message so that I can share your voice on the podcast. That's it. Don't then go on to say, and follow me on LinkedIn, follow me on Threads, follow me on Instagram, I'm on Twitter, and I'm over here on TikTok and Facebook. And my YouTube channel is, that's too much. Pick one call to action. What would it be? And why are you asking people to do that? Go to howtopodcast.ca and I'd love to hear that answer. So when you leave me that answer, one call to action and why did you pick it? Also leave me information about your show idea, or the show you're producing right now. And promote your show and let everyone listening to this show hear about your podcast. I'd love to hear that. So please go over there. And this is my call to action happening now, not at the end. Go to howtopodcast.ca, leave me a message on the SpeakPipe, hit that record button, tell me the name of your show, tell me who you are, and answer the question. If you had one call to action, what would it be and why did you pick it? Remember that building a standout Red Door podcast takes time and dedication. What's required of you as a podcaster is to stay consistent, listen to feedback from your audience, and continuously look for ways to improve and innovate. By following these steps that we talked about today and taking action, you'll be well on your way to creating a unique and successful podcast in a very competitive landscape. Your podcast will rise above the others that talk down to people, that don't build people up, that limit people's ability. Your podcast will go to a different level and you'll bring a new audience that are not happy. Just like you're finding gaps in a podcast when you listen to it going, oh, I would do that different. You're able to come in and help change podcasting by coming in with your perspective, who you are, what you know, what you've learned, the people you've met, and the lessons that have come across your path have made you unique. So what is your red door as we close off the How to Podcast series today? What is your red door? What is that one thing that reminds others about you? What's that special thing that you have? What's your superpower? And how am I going to remember you? And how am I going to remember your show? It might be simply how you make people feel. It might be the sound of your voice. It might be your honesty. It might be that you're approachable. It might be your knowledge, your passion, your love, your humor, your sarcasm, your attitude. It could be any of these things. What is your red door? And make sure that's crystal clear for you as you record your next episode so that your audience connects with the real you. howtopodcast.ca. I'd love to hear your feedback on this show and go over and answer our Podcaster's Corner question of the month. One call to action. What is it and why'd you pick it? Tell us about your show. We'd love to have you on this podcast. Thanks for listening. Talk soon.